Pride and joy, right here. I love them. They give me so much joy. Such good times. These are treasures to me. I think if you start keeping these kinds of journals, they'll be treasures to you too. Here it is, my video about keeping a travel journal. Wow, is this beautiful? I am Amanda Close, and I have kept a journal for over 40 years. I'm just back from a trip to Hawaii with my family. I thought it would be a good idea to talk through how I approach keeping a journal when I am traveling with my family. And I hope that some of these ideas will spark some ideas for you as well. So before I get into several tips, I believe I have 5 today, I just wanted to make mention of the fact that our trip for spring break this year did not go smoothly. There was trouble from the beginning. We were among the lucky because it was terrible storms in Hawaii, really bad, terrible flooding, lots of damage. I don't believe anybody died, thank God, but we ended up having to cancel the first 4 days of our trip and relocate. We were supposed to be on the North Shore. We ended up in Waikiki for a full week instead of just a couple days. And, you know, the storms were really crazy. And there was a lot of storm surge, a lot of sewage in the water. So they really recommended not going into the water on the beach, which we learned a little too late. But it sort of didn't matter. And it certainly didn't matter from a journaling perspective. If anything, it gave me a little more time to sort of reroute ourselves, figure out the direction we needed to go, and just roll with it as a family and come up with an alternative plan. And that is one of the great joys of travel, is that sometimes those mistakes can take you in a direction you didn't anticipate, and you can do things that are frankly kind of surprising and fun. So I will go through now 5 tips, and I'll have some examples from the most recent trip. Just know that some of it was really about jazz. We were ad-libbing a lot of the way through. So welcome to my vacation. Okay, first off, you'll want to pick your tools. You want a notebook that is portable, but also one that you want to carry with you, that you like enough to really keep with you for most of the trip. I think that some folks really enjoy a dedicated book for a trip journal. The challenge there is that sometimes you don't make it through. I ended up using this, my day-to-day journal, and I just decided that I would do everything in here. And I'm pretty happy actually with the way things turned out. I took the chance to do a little sketching in it. I have these spreads that are really about the logistics, and I'll go through that in a second. I'd like to paste in maps and things like that. Deciding what you want to carry with you. Some folks like a much smaller book. That is 100% great. And I did have a dedicated art journal for this trip, which not everybody is going to want to do this, but I had very much wanted to do some painting. I did some really quick sketches. This is actually my favorite spread of the entire trip, just because we were sitting on the beach in Poipu watching these amazing turtles, and I had so much fun sketching them. So super simple spread, just a little ink and a little tiny bit of watercolor, and that took about all of 10 minutes. Some other spreads, this is based on shells. I've got one more that I thought was kind of fun. This was a fun one. I ended up finding a ukulele and brought one home, which I was very excited about. And so I decided to do a little sketch celebrating my new ukulele, which by the way looks nothing like those ukuleles. I got a very simple one that is not covered with ornate flowers, but that's okay. It sounds incredible. So I'm not going to talk in this video too much in depth on this one. If you're interested in a full tour of my art journal, which I did end up finishing, which is kind of awesome, let me know and I can do a separate, quick video about that. So, you'll also want to bring a pen, a pencil, anything to write with. Bring a couple, because if one dies, you'll want to have another one. If you are interested in making art, bring some watercolors and a water brush pen. That is this sort of critter, it has a really cool tip which is like a brush and you just put water in it and then you just dunk it in any watercolor that you might bring with you. I brought these, which is my usual. I actually use this at home and when I'm traveling. It's a little bigger than a typical travel collection of paints, but I really love it. It's a Schminky box. I've augmented the original Schminky paints with a bunch of, well, some Winsor & Newton and a lot of Daniel Smith is really this combo. And I love this little paint box. It gives me great joy. Those are the main tools that I brought with me. I did bring some acrylic markers. I really think the best journal is the one that you will carry with you everywhere. I would have to make mention here that I don't think it's wise to wait until the end of the day to do your sketches or do your writing. I think it's best to write either first thing in the morning over breakfast or throughout the day in short spurts. I've heard people talk about microjournaling, and that is this idea that like if you're waiting for a train, you sit down and you write a couple sentences, or if you just have a little downtime at the pool, write a little bit. And I think I do that to some degree, although I also really enjoy having like a large stretch of time. There was one morning where my son and my husband were off doing something and I had a couple of hours just to myself, and I had a really luxurious morning on a very sunny veranda watching the ocean and writing in my journal, which was honestly kind of close to heaven for me. So I think, think about how your approach is going to be, whether you'll do this micro journaling concept or if you are going to, set aside some time every day. You don't have to plan it ahead, but it's nice to have kind of a game plan. What do you do inside the journal? I feel very strongly that it's good when you have, especially like a trip that's more than a couple of days, to have a page that is dedicated to logistics. And I like having that because I love to go back to those pages. I like to go back to those pages because sometimes people are like, oh, what was the name of that restaurant that you recommended back in whatever? So I do these very simple things. You can also do this in just a classic calendar page. I love these wrap-ups because they're just the facts. It's the hotels we stayed in, the places we ate, the activities we did during the day, and just little tiny notes. It's not a huge collection of feelings, thoughts, ideas. It's really just, talking about what happened. And I've done this for a number of years now in my journals, and I find that those pages are incredibly useful for many, many reasons. And so I do recommend doing that. You can call it the itinerary page. It's also a great place to hold on to things like confirmation numbers. Like if you're traveling in a place where you're out of cell phone range, for example, or if your phone dies, it's really helpful to have some of those trip logistic things just in writing in a notebook. Very old school, I know, but very handy. I'm on to the third thing. Use your 5 senses to describe what you are experiencing. It is easy to remember iconic, well-documented features. For example, Waikiki Beach, or those famous waterfalls, or Waimea Canyon. It is much harder to remember some of the smaller details, like discovering Steak Shack at the edge of Waikiki Beach and finding just a gem of an eating spot that my son had tracked down on TikTok. Super delicious. I'm sorry if you're a vegetarian, but really, really good for anybody who appreciates steak. And just the perfect beach lunch. Lots of salad, very fresh, really nice staff. And by the way, very easy to make gluten-free for anybody who has celiac disease like me. Having a little bit of appreciation each day for something small. Maybe it's the way the plants looked in the morning after a fresh bit of rain, or the smell that was coming off of the ocean with the fresh breezes, you name it. But you want to think about what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you are tasting, what you are seeing, and what you are feeling. It's okay that, for example, in our first 3 days, we felt a lot of rain and a lot of wind. We were not climbing Diamond Head, which was my backup plan to the backup plan, because the day we had the reservation, actually the 2 days, I had 2 reservations, that's right, 2 reservations for Diamond Head, and the rain was coming down so hard that it wasn't happening. And I'm usually like, I'm not squeamish about that stuff. I will hike in the rain gladly, but this was not to be. Diamond Head was not in my future. That's going to be the next trip to Hawaii. Someday we'll do it. This trip it was not. So try, if you really don't know what to write and you're sort of like, well, I'm not at the Eiffel Tower, and even if you are, sit down and do one sentence for each sense. So one sentence for taste, one for smell, one for sight, one for hearing, and one for touching, what you're feeling. And I think that alone is just such an interesting exercise to do. So that should give you one idea for how to experience and document some of what you are enjoying or exploring or dreading or hating about the trip that you are currently on. Number 4, ephemera and visuals. This is a really important part for me because I think it really brings it all to life, and it's something that I've collected papers forever. I have ticket stubs from the 90s. I have train passes. I have everything you can imagine, and I collect those things. I really believe that sometimes just pasting something in can also be very evocative, can really bring something back for you. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think that might actually be true, but I also want the 1,000 words because they'll tell you something a little different. I like to collect things throughout a trip. So I capture little doodads that I come across. I love a brochure stand in a hotel because even if I don't do that specific activity, sometimes the photo will be very realistic. For example, I got a photograph of a catamaran. I didn't take that catamaran, but we took a different catamaran. So pasting that picture of a catamaran into my journal made tons of sense to me. I like to capture prints and patterns. So even if it's just the back of a brochure from a museum and it doesn't even have any print on it, if it is a print that is specific to Hawaiian culture, I love to paste that sort of thing into my books. You will be handed tons of maps as you travel. Sometimes I like to just pull out the part that is relevant to what we have done, and I like to paste that in. I do from time to time, I didn't on this trip, but I have in the past printed out pictures. There are these little tiny printers that I'll put a link to below that come with these sticker sheets that you can make printouts and stick those in so that you actually have live photographs from that day, which is really fun. As I go through them, I like to add this kind of ephemera, and then I like to add my own commentary to it. So my pages aren't about being the most aesthetically beautiful. They are about really capturing a moment in time. And sometimes I will actually paste things in ahead or even behind. And it's okay that it's not a beautifully laid out page. The point is I'm getting memories down on the page as quickly as I can. So there's a scrapbooking element. Definitely bring some glue if this sounds appealing to you. You can have small scissors as long as you check them through, or you can just tear things. I do a lot of tearing just with my hands, just because it's sometimes it's just easier than trying to worry about all of those things. But glue, this is a good one that I had on the trip that's just like your classic kind of glue stick. This is a very strong glue that I have been ordering in by the dozen. It's called Tombow Aqua Mono Liquid Glue, and I really, really love this stuff. I take it everywhere. My sister introduced me to it. And then finally, I would say sketching. I know that not everybody is an artist. They don't necessarily want to to sort of keep that. But wait, I have to show you guys one thing that I have to hold up because this is from 2007. So I didn't start really art journaling until 2016, but this was a big year for me in terms of travel. 2007, I went to Morocco with some friends who were living there. I wasn't making art regularly, but I was keeping a journal and I pasted a ton of stuff in. It was also the year that I got engaged. So there's a lot of stuff in this book about my wedding planning and looking for a dress. But this is the page I wanted to show. And I don't know if you can see that, but this is, you might look at this and be like, this looks like a giant scribble, and it is, but it's also a diagram of a particular moment that happened to me and a friend of mine when we drove up into the mountains outside of Marrakesh, and then we drove back, and on the way back we got completely lost in the Medina, and we went through this section of road that was like so many people. I didn't know where we were driving. For some reason I was driving. I was behind the wheel. And that little snapshot of the picture, it's like a diagram. It's like, I talk about the people yelling at me, and the guy on the bicycle, and the children coming up to the windows, and the lady, you know, who was blind going across, tapping her little pole. You know, the whole thing was just, it was like total chaos, and it was such a moment in time. And I had forgotten about that moment until recently, when I came across this as I was like looking at some of these journals to figure out how to talk to you guys about travel journaling. And it just brought back that moment of chaos in the Medina when I definitely should not have been driving. Luckily, we made it. It is not a good drawing. It's stick figures. It's like a diagram, but I love it. And it reminds me of that moment. I was not an artist at all at that time. I think I really sort of thought that was somebody else's specialty. So, you know, just to note, if it's in your journal, who cares? Just do it. It's really fun. It adds a lot of life and vibrancy to what you're experiencing. And the final tip for keeping an art journal is to think about and capture somehow companionship, associations, reflection, and personal growth. Because a great journal isn't just what you did, but also how those experiences made you feel. It's important to capture who you were with, how they reacted to what you were experiencing. If you were alone, who did you meet? What kinds of characters did you come across along the way? And was it wonderful to be together, or did you find yourself fighting? All of this is important. Maybe you didn't agree on what you wanted to do with the day. Maybe you wanted to go spend the day at the beach and somebody else wanted to go for a hike. All of that is worth capturing and remembering. A couple of ways to do this are the following. You can think about your internal thoughts. You can document your frustrations, family arguments, missed trains, storms, for example, in my experience. You can also celebrate your small and large triumphs. That might include finding a hidden gem of a bookstore, or successfully ordering in a foreign language, or just exploring something that you weren't sure you were going to be able to pull off. In my case, it was spending some time at a really cute little ukulele shop at the end of the trip. In some ways, I wish I'd done it earlier, but honestly, I think I ended up finding just the right instrument for me. You can also capture snippets of dialogue from your travel companions and people you meet along the way. It's also fun sometimes to capture what you overhear from people while you are out and about in town. You might just hear some very funny snippets. We actually had a really great tour guide for part of the day. We spent a day in Pearl Harbor, and I really liked, I believe his name is Oli. And Oli was a character, and there was quite a bit that I wrote down from what he shared. I mean, he certainly knew his stuff in terms of the Pearl Harbor stories, but he also had a lot to say about Hawaiian culture and history, which I very much appreciated as well. So jot that down. I did. Okay, and then finally, associations and lessons learned. Oftentimes traveling will change your perspective, and writing these changes down in real time helps you to process what you are experiencing. I also like to think about the place that I'm visiting and what it reminds me of. Was there a book or a place that I've been before, and how is it different, or how is it the same? At the end of the day, keeping a travel journal is a lot like keeping a day-to-day regular journal. But I do find that when I'm on an adventure or I'm in a new place, that the writing does flow a little bit more easily because there's so much new that I'm experiencing. So I hope that this video has been helpful. I hope that you've taken something fun away. If you have something to add, please don't hesitate to pop it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much. I've been so thrilled with the comments on this series of journaling videos because so many folks have chimed in with quotes and book recommendations, prompts, and different things like that. And so I really appreciate everything that you all have been doing. Hit subscribe if you want to make sure not to miss a future video. Press that little bell thing if you want to make sure you get the notification when I do post. I hope you all have a wonderful week full of lots of time to journal and great adventures. Don't you just love the stickers? Aren't the stickers great? I really love them.